Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcaster who's here to ease you into bedtime. You know, like the L Train says, but I'm here to make every evening easy like Sunday morning. By, easing, overusing words, that's easy for me. Oh, so easy. But anyway, it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. And you're the reason I've been able to keep the show going. Those of you that spread the word, those of you that support the show on Patreon, those of you that send me your kindness and support the sponsors, like these sponsors coming up, because this is how we keep the show free for everybody. Hey, everybody, this is just a reminder that this episode was recorded a little while ago, but I wanted you to know that Sleep With Me is here to support you, and you can find links in our show notes, and Sleep With Me is here to support our Black community because Black Lives Matter. You can find links about that also in our show notes, and you can find links of steps and actions you can take, or if you're saying, what, you don't understand, you could find out more, and you could really take a look at things internally and externally, and slowly start to become a part of the solution. And all of those links will be in the show notes. So I really wanted you to know that right up front. Thanks. Hey, everybody, it's Scoots. I don't know if you've ever thought about becoming a patron and then changed your mind or decided, I don't want to be a rebel with cause. I don't want to support a free podcast. I'd love to hear why. But I think I have some pretty good reasons why maybe you could think about it if you're in a position to do so. If you're not, this is an uncertain time. I'm just reaching out to the people that are in a place where you could afford extra $5, $10, or $20 a month. So if you can't afford it, you get a lot out of the show. Those are the basic reasons to consider becoming a patron. And you say, only 1 or 2 out of every 100 listeners becomes a patron. Well, do you have what it takes to do that? Do you listen to the podcast 5, 6, 7 nights a week? Do you listen to 5, 10, 20, 30 episodes a week? Do you wait? Are you listening to the episodes on Sunday and Wednesday when they come out? Like you say, oh boy, do you love all intros? Do you want to listen to our exclusive patron-only series that $10 and $20 patrons are getting? But particularly if you listen all night, the patron feed is just way more designed for that. Or if you consume a lot of Sleep With Me and you want more selections, or you want story-only episodes, or you want all intros, see if you have extra $10 or $20 a month in your budget, and go over to sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. You get something back, but really it's what you get on the inside that you could feel good about, that you say, well, the podcast I rely on is going to be there when I need it and when thousands of other people need it too. So thank you so much, everybody. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. Oh, Mystery Bart, do you have a song to put me in the mood for this Helix Sleep?
When they sleep, one size won't fit all. Helix Sleep customizes your mattress to you to make you more comfortable.
Hey, everybody, it's Scoots. I'm really excited to talk about Helix, especially during this time when you're at home more often. You really think about, how's that bed you're in right now feel? When did you buy it? How long ago did you get it? And when you bought it, was it a seamless, personalized experience? I love my Helix bed. Helix makes personalized mattresses right here in America, shipped straight to your door with free, no-contact delivery, free returns, and 100-night sleep-on-it trial. And Helix has a quiz that just takes 2 minutes to complete. It matches your body type and sleep preference to find the perfect mattress for you. What other mattress company takes the time to really make a mattress for you and your body so that you could feel comfortable? Helix has a specific mattress for each and everyone's unique taste. I took the quiz. I got matched with the Helix Dusk, which kind of goes with this, okay, it's bedtime, it's time to wind down. But it's also important for me because I sleep on my stomach and I sleep on my side. I get a little warm. So I wanted everything that checked off all of those boxes. And for me, the quiz did that for me. And it matched me up with the Helix Dusk, which has really worked out so well. well. Helix was awarded the #1 best overall mattress pick of 2020 by GQ, Wired Magazine, and Apartment Therapy. You take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a customized mattress that'll give you the best sleep of your life.
Just go to helixsleep.com/sleep. Take their 2-minute sleep quiz. The customized mattress will give you the best sleep of your life. And you'll be saying, gee whiz, Helix Sleep.
They have a 10-year warranty, so you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. And they'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it. And the deal gets even better. So you might need to sit up in bed or leave yourself a note, because Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/sleep. That's Helix, HELIX sleep.com/sleep for $200 off. So get over there, take the quiz, and let me know what you got. I'm so excited to find out more. Thanks, Helix. All right, everybody, it's time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone. The one part of the podcast I need you to hear, because it's how we bring this podcast twice a week for free. And I want to thank Morgan, the Labradoodle's dog parent, who supported Daily Harvest, put a Daily Harvest order in. And oh boy, if you haven't tried the carrot cinnamon smoothie or the papaya one, get over there and try those 2 smoothies. The carrot cinnamon smoothie is like a drinkable carrot cake. But if you want to be like Morgan, the Labradoodle's dog parent, and support a sponsor, let them know about it. Tag them in a social media post to tag me so I can thank you here in the Sleepy Supporter Zone. Particularly these great companies that have been supporting the show right now are long-term sponsors like KiwiCo, Brooklinen, Helix, and Best Fiends. Let me know. Let me know when you support them so I can try to thank you on the Sleepy Supporter Zone. That's part 1 of the Sleepy Supporter Zone. Part 2 is getting the support you need, whether it's for self-care, whether it's for your own mental health, whether you're examining your privilege and trying to make internal and external change to support the Black members of our community and show that Black lives matter, or you're a Black member of our community and you're looking for resources right now. I'm going to have links to a bunch of great organizations in the resources to try and support you wherever you are. And the third part of the Sleepy Supporter Zone is something I support, and I support a listener who started making gifts or GIFs for the show, Ashley Slade Art. And Ashley's been doing a bunch of fundraisers this summer and spring, and one of the ones I was able to support is buying some masks with Ashley's art on them. I'm so proud to wear them around, but I'm even prouder to know that it's part of Ashley's support for LA Food Bank. So you can find out more. There'll be links in the show notes. Ashley Slade Art. I'll have links to Ashley's Instagram. So get some art from a listener and support a good cause. Thanks, Ashley, and thanks, everybody. That is the end of the Sleepy Supporter Zone, which is now over. Oh, Mystery Bard, a lot of people help out on this show. Who are they?
Posty poster son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the legend. Also edits episodes. Kenny, Scotty, and Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. We're raising money for the Water Wheel Foundation, and Scooter might get a perm.
Thanks, Mr. Bard. I'm at Dear Scooter on Twitter and Instagram. That's where you can find me. And don't forget, if you a great way to help the podcast is to spread the word if it comes up in natural conversation about podcasts or sleep online or in person. But particularly if you use LinkedIn. I don't use LinkedIn myself, but if you do and you're in a conversation there where you see an article about sleep or something and there's a chance to mention the podcast. Thanks so much. And what do you say we get on with the show? Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. And what I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature. So, things on your mind, that's one thing that keeps me up. Thoughts that I have about past, present, future, or indeterminate time periods. So thoughts, feelings, anything physical coming up for you or emotionally. Changes in temperature, that happens to me a lot, or it can happen to everybody. You could be on the road, you could be someone that works, second, third shift. Maybe they've invented at your workplace. Great news, everybody, gather round. We here at, whatever enterprises have invented a fourth shift. That's even less, so my podcast could help you with that. You say, okay, well, I thought... You see, I'll help you adjust. We'll get the curtains, you get scoots on, and I'll help carry you off into dreamland. It could be something else, but whatever's keeping you awake, I'm here to take your mind off of that. I got a safe place set up here, set aside. Can also be instantly delivered to you. Accessible, whichever you prefer, nuclear, whatever you say, any of those things. The podcast, you could have it whenever you need it. It's here for you. And then what I do is I send my voice across the deep, dark night, use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. Oh, so creaky are my dulcets. You say, well, I'm not sure how do you describe Scoots' voice? You say, well, it's not like anything I've really heard before. I mean, you've heard it before. And have you ever driven through a bog or near a bog before? Or the sound aging trees make in the wind? I think that was once a what are those things called? Those short poems with syllables in them. Sometimes my brain also blanks out. I say that was part of it. I was going to say a soliloquy, but, I almost had it, and then it vanished again from my brain. But yeah, the sound of an aging tree and a strong wind. That's what see, what does creaky dulcet mean to you? I'd say, well, that, it's actually not bad. And the reason I say this, because that's not bad if you're kicking back somewhere and listening to that in the right place. There's other ways you say, okay, well, I'm comfortable. I kind of like the sound of that tree. If I was trying to take the SAT or something, or, concentrate on, I'm not necessarily going to listen to it at that moment. But at bedtime. So I'm going to send my voice, creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. You've already got a little taste of those. I'm going to go off topic. I'm going to get mixed up. I'm going to use, not only am I going to use filler words, I'll probably get caught up in filler words. But pauses that are not pregnant with meaning. They're precognition, but they really are. I don't know. It's maybe not. They're decognition, or it's like when you're trying to start a thought. So pre-ignition. You say, I wonder if this brain's going to start on me right now. Those are what some of the pauses in the podcast say. Like before anybody that's had a car, this has been an experience with a lot of vehicles I've owned. Did you know once upon a time, kids, cars used to start with keys and not buttons? And I guess with the button, it kind of takes out the button. They said, the car's manufacturer said, let's give them a little less. We've given them, these car drivers, way too much control, and they've just run rampant with it, driving around everywhere. So let's just give them a button. and see. I wonder if there's someone doing studies of that. But so back when you had a car and if you were in a position like I've been in times, it's like you're not 100% sure your car's going to start. Before you turn the key, sometimes you talk to your higher power. Sometimes you mutter, or your lower power or whatever, your base power. That's what I've been in touch with. Holy moly. But a lot of times you just pause there. And that's kind of what it is when I pause in this podcast. I wonder if my brain's actually going to start up with some new thoughts. And I'm always trying to start my brain up and wind it to help you wind down. If you're new, welcome. Thanks for coming by. Sorry it took so long to say hello. Come on in. If you're new and skeptical or doubtful or unsure, that totally makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't you be? Here I am with a person, first of all, you say, you're the first person I met with a brain that needs a key to start it up. And I say, yeah, and believe me, I'm not even sure what kind of starter they gave me. So yeah, I don't have a button. A lot of people have that, the old button brain, built-in button. You just think of something, poofy poo, it's there. My creaky dulcet tones do sound a bit like a car trying to get started. Because it's the same thing. See, how many times are you going to talk about this? How many ways can I talk about this analogy? I don't know. So if you're new, here's a couple things to know. If you're skeptical or doubtful, a lot of listeners, I don't even know, millions, hundreds of thousands, I don't know, came to this show very doubtful too, very skeptical. And probably, I don't know what percentage of them back off that way. But actually, millions have stayed, too. So they said, hey, I'd like this podcast, I'm going to give it a second or third try. Suddenly, they said, this is great. This is right what I'm looking for. It's something I don't really have to listen to. It's there for me to listen to. But I don't have to listen to it or engage it with my full attention. It's intended to put me to sleep, but also be barely listened to. And that took me a few tries I'm just generalizing what I hear from listeners. It took me a few times to understand that, I could listen to Scoots or I could barely listen to Scoots. It's going to make the same amount of sense. If I try to really listen, though, I'm not sure it'll work. So kind of give it a few tries when you first get here, but realize you don't need to listen. There's also no pressure to fall asleep. I'm here to keep you company, essentially, as you drift off, which is a little different approach than most things. A lot of things are intended to just put you to sleep. Here I am. I'll take your mind off stuff, keep you company, be in the vicinity of your bedside or wherever you're snoozing. And, keep you occupied, just barely. And the reason the episodes are about an hour is so you have plenty of time, or alternatively, if you can't sleep, you got somebody here for you. You say, okay, well, at least I got Scoots to talk to me about some stuff. So those are a couple of things to know. Other things, if you're new, that can throw a new listener off. I want to give you as many heads up as I can, though they always come too late. So the thing is, this podcast does not work for everybody. I said that, structurally, this is definitely, where the show deviates from norm. The show starts off with business. That's really how we keep it free for everybody. It's not free to make or distribute the show, but I want it to be free for anybody that wants it. And we do that between listener support and advertiser support. So, I don't know. That's something I'm actually very proud of because the people that benefit from the show help keep it there for anybody else that's not in a position to do that, or that just that you don't need to. So that's the business, but that's only about 4 or 5 minutes. Then there's about 18 minutes or so of me just talking, which I think we're about 6 minutes into that, where I just kind of introduce the podcast, and then I get distracted. Then I go back to introducing the podcast. We've seen that so far in the last few minutes. Then I'll start talking about something else. Then I'll go back to introducing the podcast. And eventually, around 20 minutes or so, the intro will end, and then we'll have some business, and then I'll tell you a bedtime story. So you could skip ahead to 20 minutes. What I would recommend is listening to the podcast a few times to see how it works for you, because most listeners listen to the intro. Some of those listeners are listening as they're getting ready for bed, or some listeners are listening as they're in bed and falling asleep. So some people fall asleep during the intro, but most listeners kind of listen to the intro. That's why it's like 15 to 20 minutes to wind down. Let the day fade away behind you. And just listen to old Scoots Magoots as I make up my own goofy names, here to keep you company. And then the show ends with some thank yous. So that's the structure of the show. Podcast you don't need to listen to. No pressure to fall asleep. I make the show because I've been there. I've been there tossing and turning, mind racing, trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, trouble getting up. How about this one? Getting up too early. So here's my situation right now. I say my daughter doesn't have school this week when I'm recording this. So I don't need to get up at my usual very early time anyway. So here's what my brain decides. Let's get up 15 minutes earlier than our alarm would go off, just naturally. And I say, well, but I'm going to bed like 40 minutes later. So what's up with that? My brain, that part of me says, I don't know, just woke up. And I said, well, can I get to bed? Well, you could try to get back to sleep. Yeah, you don't even have an alarm set, huh? So that's what I'm dealing with this week. But I'm dealing with it. I said, maybe I'll take a nap. I don't know. Maybe I got enough sleep anyway. Maybe I'll try to go to bed earlier. But I make the show because I've been there in all those situations, and it's frustrating, right? You can probably hear it in my voice, even though that one is like not as bad as not being able to fall asleep or waking up. Whatever it is that's going on with you, it's important. And it's not allowing you to get the sleep you need. And what I believe is you do deserve a good night's sleep. And not only that the world will be a better place with you rested in it. Your world, your personal world will be better. You'll probably be better equipped with everything you come in contact with. And that does, it's not trite to say it. Like, that makes the entire world a better place. And opportunity for you to flourish, having a reliable place of rest, that's really what we want. Isn't that what we all want? And that's what I want for you. Now, the catch with this show is that it just doesn't work for everybody. If this show even worked for like 50% of the people who listen to it, I would actually already have like some proxy doing this show. I would be on a yacht somewhere. So I do wish it worked for everybody. It's just this show's a little bit different. If it doesn't work for you, test out different stuff. I like a 2-fan, I have an air purifier that's pretty loud when it's on high, and a box fan. That's one thing I try. Then I'll try something else, and I'll try an app. I'll listen to an empty bowl, or, try to test out another sleep podcast, or I'll meditate, or I'll go for a walk. I'll sit outside. But hopefully Sleep With Me can become your bedtime, your bore friend. That's really the role I'm applying for. Your bore bud, your bore sib, your bore bae, your bore bestie. I'm here to keep you company and be at your side. I don't know. That's pretty much it. Usually these intros kind of go into a much longer ramble. But I really just want to help you fall asleep if I can. So if you like, give it a few tries and see how it goes, because I really appreciate you checking this show out. I appreciate your time. I work hard, and I yearn and I strive to help you fall asleep. And here's a couple of ways we're able to keep this podcast free for everybody. Hey, everybody, it's Scoots here, and I know this isn't an easy time for everybody, but I wanted to let you know this podcast is going to continue to be coming out on Sunday and Wednesday nights. So ideally, the podcast stays a place that you can rely on whenever you need it. But I do want to ask those of you that are in a position to do so to think about supporting the show. And you could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. I mean, the main reason that patrons say they support the show is because it feels good. They know they get a lot of value out of the podcast, and they're proud to support the work that goes into the show that puts them to sleep, and they get so much out of. And that's pretty rebellious. It's actually like countercultural to support a free podcast because you get something out of it. So if you do have an extra $10 in your monthly budget or $20 in your budget, consider becoming a patron. Now, some of you might be like, well, what really is in it for me? Well, $10 and up patrons get 2 all intro episodes a month. So that's one reason if you're a fan of all intros. If you just want to get to the stories or you don't like any the singing in the podcast, $5 and up patrons get story-only episodes every week, and they get jingle ad-free episodes every week. And the main reason to become a patron is if you listen on a regular basis and you rely on the show, or especially if you listen all night. So just ask yourself, how many times do you listen to Sleep With Me a month compared to other things you pay for on a monthly basis? And then only if you're in a position to do so, go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. One other reason to do so, though, is that now we have an exclusive show. It's only available to $10 and $20 patrons. It's an exclusive behind-the-scenes look. It's still sleepy at the making of Odder Things. And this is just something really cool. You say, wait a second, I'm the only one that gets to listen to this, and it's sleepy, and I get a deeper look into the process of making the show. So one more reason to think about becoming a patron at sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. Hey, everybody, it's time to talk about that sponsor, KiwiCo. Right. Well, Mr. Bart, why don't you sing early? Because I love that KiwiCo song. It gets me every time. It gets me dancing.
KiwiCo, a KiwiCo science and art subscription box for kids. KiwiCo, a KiwiCo sleep is a promo code for KiwiCo.
Thanks, Mr. Bart. Now, some of you might feel like your summer vacation started super early this year, and now that the real summertime has arrived, doesn't mean you have to stop learning at home and creating at home and making at home. And KiwiCo is an unbelievably fun way to learn at home, and for kids not only to learn tactile skills, intellectual skills, but to learn skills that they can really feel good about. We switched to a Maker Crate subscription recently, and I've never seen my daughter more focused and then more proud. Last month's Maker Kit was an embroidered lamp, so she made her own lamp using sashiko embroidery. So not only is it a lamp, but she learned embroidery skills, she learned patience, but I don't know, every time I look at that lamp, I'm proud of her. But I know every time she looks at the lamp, she thinks about all of the steps it took to put it together and that she did it. I mean, I'm not kidding. If you have a kid in your life, whether it's at your home or a neighbor or a friend or a family member, it is time to sign them up for KiwiCo. And these are really high quality materials, real engineering, science, and art projects. But everything you need is included, so you don't have to worry about gathering anything or finding anything. And you can really feel good about doing your part to encourage the children in your life to be innovators and creative thinkers. And then when they're finished, they're going to have a big, confident smile, knowing the work they put in and the lessons they learned. KiwiCo is redefining play with hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills. You get your first month free on select crates at kiwico.com/sleep. So did you hear that? Your first month free on select crates. So I don't know what you're waiting for. I mean, seriously, I feel like I should be hearing from every listener about who they send a KiwiCo box to, because you're going to get so much back as the giver, and then the kid you give it to is going to get even more. So get over there. That's kiwico.com/sleep. KIWICO.com/sleep. Get over there and let me know about it. Thanks, everybody. All right, everybody, it's time for a story. You know, we've visited the Universe of Cloud Tower a few times in a couple episodes over the past few years, but I heard a tale when I was up there. You know, I can access it. You know, the easiest way to access the secret of success is pronouncing access. But if you're ever wondering how to get a little bit of a taste of life at Cloud Tower, that's the world above the clouds. It doesn't get any press. It doesn't get, you know, there's like, I I don't know if there's any other works of fiction celebrating that world, because people say I don't see it when I'm in a plane or on radar or any, Google Eye or whatever it's called doesn't show it. I say, okay, well, I don't know. I don't remember Alice in Wonderland asking any of these questions, but these are good questions. So I'll tell you right now. In spring or summer or fall, possibly in winter, you could just lie down and you kind of get comfortable. Maybe you could imagine you're doing it right now in your bed. And this nice, comfortable grass. Maybe there's a blanket, a comfortable one between you and the grass, because you say, oh, that's nice. And there's a tree offering you a comforting shade. The air is just warm enough. The breeze is keeping the air moving, but it's a warm breeze, not a hot breeze. The hot air only scoots will provide. And you could look up there in the sky, maybe through the branches of the trees, and start to wonder. You might even wonder what's going on up there, way up in the clouds, where, there's stuff going on up there. There's a whole world. We've only visited the transportation hub, when... back in the day on those episodes. But I heard this story about a simple road trip, which was hands down. I said, I got to make a podcast about this because they said, well, this is interesting to me. It was a tale of a few youth, Cloud Tower youth, whose names I'll change now and try to think of. Fluffernutter was one of them. She's was another, and Carl was a third, and then Sigrid, we'll say Sigrid, like a Sigrine, those are the names I just thought of to change their names. And they were CBYs, I called them, cloud-based youth, or youth-based cloud-based youth, or like they were in that strange phase of life for a cloud or anyone, where some would say you're an adult, but you've crossed over the old official what is that called, the entryway. There's a fancier word for it, into the world of adulthood, but that's just, it's foisted on you. And clouds don't like foisting, but it's a part of the process. We all are familiar with it. They say you're a grown-up now, and you're in the world of grown-up things, or you're almost in the world of grown. In this case, it was almost in the world of grown-up things. They were all training together, learning. As part of this world, it has a pretty, let's just trying to give a short version, but they were in a higher education. It's kind of a liberal arts type feel, like a broad-based thing, preparing them, but also learning tangible things at the same time. So they knew that, in some worlds, courage was confused with other things like braggadocio and those. So they're trying to teach people tangible things so they'd feel comfortable in their own clouds. And so these four youths, maybe whose names will escape me, they knew that just pending was their release into for a cloud, into the big air, the big sky, the whole world up there, whatever. I don't know if it's the stratosphere or the mesosphere. I have no idea. And maybe say, well, I always thought I was an alto-cumulus. And they said, well, that's what you always dreamed of, eh? Or this was when you'd be younger. I want to be a thunderhead. I say, well, every thunderhead starts out, but yada, 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 evaporative, what, I don't know. But what was maybe we say, well, does it start out as H2O, or was just a hydrogen, two hydrogen and oxygen, or one hydrogen and two oxygen? Where did it all begin? And these four young people, they were getting ready for that transition, and they wanted to have one last fun time, They were on a break from school, and the relationship-wise, so who was there? It was Shay and Fluff, we'll call them for short. And they were friends. They had been friends through all of higher ed. They had even lived and worked together in the summer times. They were really close. And then they had a third friend. Sigrid was friends with the other person whose name I forgot, the other cloud-based CBY, cloud-based youth, or cloud-based being. Is both, you can be both, obviously. I'll just say Zay, because I can't think of, so Zay was friends with both Shay, that's nice that it rhymes, and Fluff, and then on the other side was Sigrid, who was kind of friendly. Everyone was friends, but just the closeness factor was not. But out of all of them, Shay was the one who was the most extroverted, confident, in a positive confidence. And because Shay had such confidence, they were comfortable venturing out and pushing people, not foisting them, but saying, hey, why don't we try something outside our comfort zone? And they all said, okay. So one day Shay said, I'd like to have a talk to the three of you. The four of us, I'd like to have a meeting. And they said, what's up? And Shay said, well, I have this idea, we have this break coming up, and we're getting ready to transition into this world of mature clouds. And, I think we should have one last good time, a little bit outside our comfort zone, though. And then they got distracted because the fourth person, Sigrid, said, well, what about radio? Like, if you get, and then there was a long talk about radio. And then Sigrid said, okay, back to you, Shay. You take back over. And Fluff was the quietest. Fluff was the tallest and most physically attractive and imposing cloud. And not really imposing. The kind of a dreamy cloud. You'd say, wow, that Fluff doesn't say much, but projects and then, as we talked about, Shay was had all the qualities, kind of someone most people would have been jealous of if Shay wasn't just so kind and charming. And then Zay was just a good friend, really. I mean, a lot of other positive qualities, but funny, kind, driven and focused, but not in a way that impacted Zay's friends. And then Sigrid was probably, a little bit like someone that would make a podcast or like a little bit different, but still a good friend and a different sense of humor. But they were all friends. And so eventually they said, Sigrid said, cue back to you, Shay. Tell us what the plan is. And Shay said, well, are you familiar with these kind of jet streams that people talk about? The rivers of air in the upper atmosphere that go through. And, we've learned so much about them. And we've even done some traveling. But Shay said, and we're not equipped to just go out there and just travel on a jet stream. Like it takes proper cloud, equipment and all those things. But Shay said, I have an uncle who's looking to move like a It's tough to explain, but, there's cloud-based beings, and then there's, like, for generalization, CBE, cloud-based equipment, or structures, CBS, you could say. You don't think they would say that. They'd say, biscuits, please. And I said, well, that was, so cloud-based CB, that's still, so cloud-based stuff I was going to say. And so Shay's uncle had a cloud-based thing that had like what would be the equivalent of on Earth, maybe a ship or a boat or a car or a dirigible, a little bit different than a dirigible or a balloon. What are those things called? An airship. But similar to those things, a large form of transport. And she said, well, my uncle's got to relocate this, they called it the Ziffer, from not that far off, somewhere we could get to somewhere where it's nice and warm and sunny. And, we're going to be out in the open jet stream, out in the open air. We'll be working for my uncle just for a few days. And then we could stay on the Ziffer and enjoy, like this was somewhere, down where the air is even warmer and pleasurable, and maybe there's even pockets of moist air pockets, just kind of like swimming, and kind of like their ocean, great views. And at first, there was like, you got to be kidding me, this sounds awesome. And, Fluff just didn't say much, said, sounds cool, I'm in. And then Zay said, wow, this sounds great, really. Like, so do we have a plan, and how much is this going to cost? And Shay said, we'll be free. Like, it's almost like we're getting to stay on there for free by helping relocate it. And Sigrid said, well, I'm not so sure about this, like, what about, and they said, don't worry, like, it's not like the humans have their airships. Ours are big and puffy and wide. So there's places to lie down and relax, and it's going to be we'll learn so much, we'll become closer friends, we'll have an adventure, then we'll have a vacation. What could be better? And everyone said, okay, great. And so then they prepared, and, they had to journey to where the Ziffer was, and they met Shay's uncle, Breeze. And they'd also said, well, we don't know anything about Ziffers or anything like that. And Shay said, don't worry, my uncle will be working with some professionals, and we'll just be the crew. And they said, okay, sounds good. But when they got down to meet Uncle Breeze, Uncle Breeze, Uncle Breeze said, well, you know what? I found out that we were going to be the crew, and there was going to be a captain, but I'm going to be the captain now, Captain Breeze, and you'll be my crew. And we're just going to take a simple journey. We're going to come out of this little pocket we're in here, and we're going to get into the jet stream. We're going to take the jet stream for 36 hours. And then we'll arrive at what is known as Paradise Cove up here in the clouds. That's where Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer vacations. We'll pass the arms of Morpheus. It's going to be, legend. These are high-altitude birds. We'll probably even see some humans flying. They won't recognize us for anything more than puffy water vapor, but we know better. And they said, okay. Other thing was that Uncle Breezy was a little bit disorganized, didn't quite have their act together. But they said, everybody was confident. They said, no, nothing to be concerned about. We're going on an adventure. Don't forget that, Shay said. And the next morning, bright and early, they got up and they got on to the Ziffer. They had slept, maybe they had slept on the Ziffer. I guess they had. And they got up, they had some breakfast. And they headed out, and they were in this big cove. I don't know what it was called. Tuber Town. That's right. Thank you. And it took a few hours just to get out of Tuber Town, and they all took turns kind of learning how you steer an airship. Even if it's made of clouds, it's a slow-moving thing, and the breeze was fresh, and the sun was shining. They said, wow, we're really on the beginnings of an adventure, eh? And the uncle said, oh, yes, we are. We'll be carried by the jet stream. We do have an engine and we have a sail very similar to a boat, but mostly we're just going to be cruising. And they even saw some high-flying raptors that looked at them, and it was like something out of the movies. They were slapping each other, cloud fives, and dancing and smiling, and it was really, really. And then they headed out of the cove there, Tuber Town, out into the larger jet stream. And as they got out there, the Uncle Breezy and Shay said, we want to learn while we're out here. This isn't just an adventure. If we just, nothing was going to, if we just got in the jet stream and we headed down there, it wouldn't really be, it wouldn't be much. We would just be it would just be a relaxation. You're going to relax when you get there. So we've prepared some things for you. And the other three cloud-based CBYs. And the other three CBYs said, okay. And then Uncle Breezy said, are you familiar with Venus and Bacchus and their stories? And everyone kind of just stared at them and said, well, no, I'm sorry. And they said, Bacchalian, and then Breezy said, okay, I'll have to come up with something different. And Breezy said, for your opener, for the opening thing, we're going to not use any more of the engine. This has a solar power based, I don't know if it converts ions or something. But Uncle Breezy said, no, we're not going to use it. So shut off the engine. So what should we do if we don't have an engine power? We're in the jet stream. We're flowing with the jet stream. In your brief time, what did you learn? And they said, well, we should put up some of those sails. Now, this particular airship had two sails, so it didn't look like it looked like more like. So I don't know if you've ever gone to a sushi restaurant, right? And they have these gigantic sushi boats, like the Sushi Deluxe boat, and sometimes those are wooden, and they're pretty wide. You see, well, I've never seen a boat that wide before, but it's meant to look like a boat. Like that's what the top of the airship, where the people are on the airship looks. But then the bottom of it looks like a puffy cloud, like an airship with a flat boat top almost. Because it's a cloud and not a helium or hydrogen balloon. And then you could go down and sleep below inside the cloud. When you're a cloud, you have a different relationship with, all things that we human. It's tough for us humans to understand it, but we could kind of create a, line of an example. So it's structured differently, but so if you're just on the surface, it kind of seems like you're on the deck of a ship, but it's much wider and calmer and more roomy and balanced. Like it gives you a sense of, you just stay relaxed because you see, oh, there's plenty of space here. Holy moly. But it also has these two masts for sails or a third thing in the front. I don't know, it's a spinnaker or whatever. So they said, well, let's put up the sails. So then Uncle Breezy said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. If we don't have an engine, let's put up the sails and go by the power of the wind. And so they put up the mainsail, and the boat began to move and it gave it purpose. They said, okay, now where we can control where we are in the jet stream here and be a little bit more intentional. And then they put up the second sail, a little bit smaller, a little bit towards the back. And they said, okay, let's do that one. That sounds good. And so there they were. And then Uncle Breezy said, okay, now we're traveling, right? And we're being propelled by the wind and the jet stream. We're traveling in the jet stream. A few hours had passed by, but then they were again taken. This wasn't the first time, they had tested out in Tubertown using the sails. And then Uncle Breezy said, what about Dr. Hoomst? Anybody familiar with Dr. Hoomst? And they said, Doctor Who? That's what Sigrid said. You mean Doctor Who? What's one of my favorite human human-based entertainment. And Uncle Breezy, Dr. Breezy, we could even call him, said, no. That's like the concept of who are the doctors among us? Who's will help us solve, one another, golden rule, empathy, compassion. And they all said, oh, that sounds interesting. And then unexpectedly, the weather changed and the wind started to pick up quite a bit, even there in the upper atmosphere. And at first everyone was and Uncle Breezy said, don't worry, we'll lower down the mainsail there and we'll just continue with the back sail. And so they did that, and the boat started to move a little bit slower, and then it still had some purpose. And then Uncle Breezy said, well, here's something unexpected. And then the spinnaker, whatever foresail, it came away from its moorings and actually filled up with air. And it caused them to kind of the boat to kind of move without purpose, because it was just under the control of the wind. It wasn't tied to anything. And so then they had to send Shay, and Shay kind of cut the sail loose, and they said, okay, that was good. That was Shay's idea. Very, very good improv. And then they said, look around. And then they looked around and they realized that where they were in the jet stream, they were surrounded, it was like a stream, like there was clouds on either side, but they were like in a river of perfectly clear atmosphere. And it was cloudy banks, and it was really beautiful. There was even clouds above them. And again, they just were going by this one back sail, and they'd even lowered it a little bit because they said, well, it's even a little bit too windy for us. Let's go a little bit slower. And then Uncle Breezy said, okay, let's test out another idea. So we're going just by the back sail. What if we were to take apart this mainsail? And actually, they took it apart. They took the boom from the mast and the sail. And they used them to, they played a game a bit like it looked like giant Q-tips. It was some strange cloud-based game. Humans, I guess you would say, what are they, just chasing each other around and tickling each other with giant Q-tips that used to be a boom and a mast. And that was a few hours of giggling and chasing each other. And I think that's what they were actually doing, but I'm not positive. But again, I guess they're more comfortable if they say, well, we'll chase each other around and tickle each other. We're, subtext or not, we're happy with it. And so they were all tired, and they said, oh boy, this has been a full day. It was the evening and night had set. And they said, well, we've learned a full thing. We've kind of had these challenges, but still we're heading in this jet stream. and we have this back sail. And so they said, okay, now we're going to take turns guiding the ship in the night. And you just guide it by the compass. They had a very similar to a compass, except it was a glowworm. I don't know. It like basically looked like a compass with a dome and things, but instead of north, south, east, or west, there's just like this glowworm. And I think you initially whisper to the glowworm where you want to go, but you actually have to do like something similar to like longitude and latitude. You can't say, take me, to this zip code. The glowworm doesn't know that. So they had just told the glowworm basically head in the general direction. Because this was another thing Uncle Breezy said, well, like, and notice we don't know exactly where we're going other than in the jet stream and generally sticking to it. Maybe we should just do that until the sun comes up again, and then we'll and just see where things are in the morning. We'll take turns while we rest because we're so tired from tickling one another with puffy Q-tips. And so they all agreed, and they agreed that they would take shifts, taking turns, watching the sea, and keeping an eye, like you say, okay, like one person will watch just the glowworm because it's kind of hypnotic and just steer the ship in line with where the glowworm is saying the direction to go. And another person will, make sure you don't fall asleep and keep an eye out in general, more broader awareness. And it was raining on and off. It had started raining even up there in the upper. I don't know when rain starts to go upward or downward or sideways, but it could have been doing all those things. But it was there in the deep, dark night that they really found that it was like the vastness, like they could see the stars sometimes, and sometimes it was cloudy above them. So they could see the vastness of space above. And I guess this is something humans, we really don't really get unless we're in a transparent plane. So maybe only Wonder Woman has had this experience, but they could see the vastness below sometimes too. Sometimes it was cloudy below, and sometimes the jet stream was clear. Sometimes they were passing over, populated parts of continents, and sometimes it was, not as over ocean. And so there was constellations of light below. And they weren't moving, it's not like they were in a jet plane. I don't know the exact speed of the jet stream with 1/2 sail up. But that's about the speed they were going. And, they noticed as they were taking turns every few hours, switching on and off. And then they also noticed it was like they were tired, but it's also strange to sleep when you're out there in the big, puffy world, as we said, and knowing this vastness. Even though they had this nice, comfortable ziffer they were traveling on, that it was a little bit, I mean, for them, it was real, and this, they were living a metaphor, like the vastness of the world awaited them, too. And I don't know if that was Uncle Breezy or Shay preparing them to say, well, sometimes it's just not comfortable, right? But they all had an opportunity to talk about it. So soon they found themselves in and out of sleep saying, this is a strange experience here at sea. They called it at sea, or at cloud, I guess is a technical term. And we've kind of given up our mainsail and our engine. And it feels like an adventure, but also it feels good and not good at the same time. But because they were having a shared experience, they were able to confirm it with, oh, yes, I could see you feel that way, or I feel this way, which is similar. But in my own words, it might sound different to you. And then they would experience it, go back on the deck of the ziffer and experience it again. And then they would start talking to the glowworm about it. even though the glowworms in this case, not like these Hollywood glowworms, you hear all about back in the 80s that, got all the glory and then got rebooted probably a few times. Probably could use one time, if I was a smart speaker manufacturer, hello, opportunity for a good night friend. But anyway, these glowworms were working glowworms. And again, don't try to project Earth-based EBUs onto this, kind of like in a form of like a high-focused, what do you call that when you're sleeping? But like a high-focused sleep or something, like a suspended state of, not a suspended state of animation, but something different that we don't experience here on Earth. The only thing would be like hibernation, but that's different, which I couldn't think of. It took me 3 minutes to think of that word. But so the glowworms were mostly just, again, another place for them to project. But the constant glow of the glowworm against all of the night, and the fact that the glowworm consisted of colors that could be were more comforting, like hot neon pinks and greens and blues, compared to the colder stars in the sky, or the ones on Earth. You see, well, LED or incandescent or whatever the other ones are. It's phosphorus. I don't know what the heck they're called. They all have a different spectrum on they're not as warm as the light of by the light of a glowworm. One of these youth would probably write a book by that. But so they could sit with the glowworm and say, glowworm, maybe some of the other youth were asleep, but they say, glowworm, there's something about all this that is unsettling, but yet stirring something in me. And do you know what I'm feeling, glowworm? And the simplicity of just steering by the glowworm helped. But it may have also given them the discomfort that they started to all do that for a while as the night wore on. And I think they were just traveling. I don't know what direction they were traveling, if they're traveling into the night or out of the night. Because I don't know if they were using the jet stream that gets all the love in the U.S. Again, if you're saying Hollywood glowworm, you might have to say Hollywood jet stream, too. You say, oh, you're Western jet stream, and I say, okay, well, I'm not sure. I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure because I was only up in the clouds for this story. I couldn't see. My geography is like, I have a U.S.-based geography knowledge. But so... Then, as they were all sleeping, they heard Uncle Breezy, Dr. Breezy, was up on the deck of the Zephyr with Zay. And Dr. Breezy said, Zay, and everyone was kind of, again, listening and sleeping. Are you ready? And Zay said, for what? And Dr. Breezy said, well, Dawn's here. Maybe we should start steering the ship in a more specific direction. Like maybe I could look at my charts and figure out where we are. And they said, Dr. Breezy, you don't know where we are? Dr. Breezy said, well, we've been traveling for about 10 hours, just generally headed in the same direction as the jet stream. So I don't really know. And then... Zay said, Dr. Breezy, I'm noticing I don't feel like I'm controlling and steering the ship anymore. The Zephyr kind of seems to be just moving on its own. And then Dr. Breezy said, let me try. And then Dr. Breezy said, Shay, you better get up here and check things out. And Dr. Breezy said to the youth, after everyone was awoken and brought up to the deck of the Zephyr, now we try to manage without being able to steer. What do we do now? We're in the jet stream and we're moving and like, what do you think we should do? And at first, they had been through a night with the vastness of the universe and their impending adulthood. These existential questions that Clouds asked himself. They had talked to the glowworm. And they'd also heard, like, we don't even really know where we are. Was this like some sort of, part of their brain was willing to accept that this was a metaphorical experience, and part of their brain was like, how can an actual experience also be such an apt metaphor? So they actually discussed that for a while. And they said, well, if we can't really, we might as well bring the sail down, because the back sail, because if we can't really steer, we don't really need that, obviously, because we're just drifting in the jet stream. Then they went through and kind of tried to think about different songs that would be apt for, if they could think of songs drifting in the jet stream. But they realized that there's probably a lot of pop songs about that. And so they said, well, what shall we do? Shall we drift? Or not? And it was Shay who said, we should throw down a slow down, a heavy cloud, they called it, a cloud of heavy water, and slow or stop our movement. And Dr. Breezy said, what do you all think about that? And Fluffy or Puffy and Sigrid and Seagreen or whatever, and Zay said, yeah, okay, it sounds good. So then Shay went to the front of the deck of the thing and threw the heavy water cloud overboard, similar to an anchor. But after they threw it, they realized, the anchor was not attached to the ziffer. Which was another lesson. That was Dr. Breezy's lesson to learn, that you probably should keep your heavy water slower down or attached to your ship. So that went over, and then they said, what is this? What kind of life lessons is this Dr. Breezy trying to teach us? And they said, okay, well, now we're fully adrift. We have like a little rowboat, heavy, like we can throw that overboard, and that'll like barely slow us down a tiny bit. But Dr. Breezy said, what are we going to do? And then the lessons had progressed because the youth had gotten to the end of Dr. Breezy's, they said, Dr. Breezy, you didn't have your heavy water slowed down or attached to your boat. And you weren't you going to look up where we were? And Dr. Breezy said, I don't really know how to do that. As a matter of fact, I thought I had, a glowbot, which talks to the glowworm, and it's not charged. And they said, Dr. Breezy, that's like not acceptable. And they said, we're not really having a tiny muses, which is a term there for when you sing and you take over captaining of the ship. They call it a tiny muse, because there's a special Tiny Muse song. But they said, yeah, collectively, the four of us are going to use our collective knowledge and not use yours. You could take a secondary role now. And, of course, Dr. Breezy smiled knowingly to Dr. Breezy's self. But the cloud-based youth did not know that at the time. And they said, well, what are we going to do here? And they said, by the way, Dr. Breezy, you're our advisor, though, so don't, if you pipe up if you know anything. And they said, well, we don't know where we are, and we don't know where we're going other than generally somewhere. We don't have control of our destination. And then we have these layovers from all the vastness from last night. So we're unsettled, but in this case, that was a good thing, right? They were unsettled in an empowered way, and they were unsettled with the supposed leadership of Dr. Breezy. And so they said, what are our options here? What are our options? And they said, well, we kind of like, we did the Tiny Muses thing, but it sounds like we just so we can't exactly. We're trying to get help from Dr. Breezy, who's not super helpful except in a general way. I think it's time to ask for help, like a broader help. And up in the cloud world, obviously, the arms of Morpheus and the arms of Morpheus are what live in the cloud tower, or also are the cloud tower, overlooking all things in the cloud world. I'm sure there are other higher beings up there. But they said we're always, one thing we kind of forgot last night is up here in the cloud world, we're always in the embrace of the arms of Morpheus. Awake or sleep, that... when we go to sleep, we're supposed to remember that, but we didn't really sleep good last night, so we forgot that. But also in our belief system, also for real, Morpheus is a tangible being and system. So we just have to ask Morpheus and Morpheus's representatives for help. And so Ziffer was required to have 3 ways to contact Morpheus Cloud Tower. Actually, 2 ways to contact Cloud Tower. The main way, and they said, Dr. Breezy, can we use the main way to contact Cloud Tower? And they tried that for a few hours, but they were getting no response. And they said, Dr. Breezy, aren't you required to have a secondary backup to get a hold of Cloud Tower? And Dr. Breezy said, not only do I have one brand new in the box, a portable one. And they opened the box and they said, Dr. Breezy, when you buy a brand new portable, Cloud Tower contact system, the batteries don't come charged in the box. And Dr. Breezy said, oh boy, you're right. So they said, okay, that won't work. So then the third option was just like this, this magical, this tube that had, it was that you would sing into, and all of them had to stand on the deck of the Ziffer, except they didn't include Dr. Breezy. And they sang into it, and they kind of sing this special song where you call the Morpheus. You say, please, it translates into, please embrace me. Or, oh, Morpheus. Sometimes I forget. These are different parts of it. The vastness of the world is all contained in your embrace, which can also just contain your arms around me in a warm hug. That makes me feel safe, and I can ask you to pat my back if needed, which I could use right now. Oh, Morpheus, please hold me in your loving embrace. And also, we're asking for a hug because we want to ask for more help, because right now we don't feel adrift, we are adrift. And we could use some guidance. And, of course, Morpheus responded. And Morpheus said, hug one another for now. And they said, how could we forget that? And so they hugged and held one another. And even Dr. Breezy, they embraced one another. Morpheus said, wait, help will arrive. And eventually, these other cloud, smaller cloud-based Ziffers came. And he said, hey, we're here from Morpheus. We heard you were adrift and you were trying out an adventure. And they said, you're not an adventure with Dr. Breezy, eh? They said, what did you learn on your adventure? They said that, they kind of to sum it up, they said, well, an adventure's a mix of things, good and outside of good, what you would define as good or pleasurable. It's exciting. It's tiring. That sometimes you don't know. That it's not easy. That a lot of times in the midst of the adventure, you forget the simpler principles of Morpheus. But also that it's like, wow, that is a thing. Morpheus embraces a thing, so is the vastness of all things. And that sometimes you got to ask for help and reach out for help or provide help and comfort to one another. And sometimes you got to do all those things. And they said, great, well, we'll take you to your vacation now. And they said, well, can't we just turn everything on, Dr. Breezy? They said, well, Dr. Breezy was giving you only a 10% of that test was intentional. But a lot of it was just accidental genius of Dr. Breezy. And so they headed off, actually in this case, into the sunset. And they rested and they were changed forever. But it was like a lesson, again, they would have to keep learning. But in those times, they could remember, they could hold themselves, they could ask to be held. They could remember their being held within the vastness of things just by being there and breathing and imagining the presence of Morpheus. Yeah, but they also knew, okay, always ask for help. Adventures can be uncomfortable, but we're also okay. And they rested so well that night, and then they had a brilliant time. A vacation for the ages, those 4 cloud-based youth. Good night. All right, I wanted to thank everybody for the show recently on Patreon. Sarah, Nick, and Heather, thank you. Thanks, and good night. Miriam, Jake, and Sarah with no H. Thanks, and good night. Ryan, Yavuz, and Linda, thanks, and good night. Deborah, Rosie, and Lydia, thank you, thanks, and good night. Scott, Megan, and Elizabeth, thank you, thanks, and good night. Allison, Z, and Jessica, thank you, thanks, and good night. Evan, Stephen with a V, and Stephen with a PH in a row, thanks, and good night. Barb, Jack, and Allison, thank you, thanks, and good night. Faith, Ross, and Hannah, thank you, thanks, and good night. Charlie, Warwick, and Jenna, thank you, thanks, and good night. Michael, T, and Amy, thank you, thanks, and good night. Darcy, Rebecca, and Rex, thank you, thanks, and good night. Witchfinder, Susan, and Emma, thank you, thanks, and good night. LDL, Alyssa, and Zach, thanks, and good night. Layden, Jasmine, and Kim, thanks, and good night. Whitney, Croy, and Jay, thank you, thanks, and good night. Dawn and Mary, thank you, thanks, and good night. And Aaron and Eli, thank you, thanks, and good night. Thanks, everybody, for supporting the show on Patreon. It's a huge, huge help. Sleep With Me exists as a free podcast because of people that support the show, directly on Patreon or via sponsors. So I really, really appreciate that. We grow as a podcast because people that share the show in person and online with the people in their lives or let people know about podcasts. So I greatly appreciate that as well. And speaking of letting you know about podcasts, let me let you know about one right here.